Welcome to Scuba Bob's Ocean Quest. Our goal is to educate youth and adults on the importance of our oceans and waterways. Scuba Bob has been diving since 1978 with thousands of dives around the world. The oceans cover 72% of the Earth's surface. 75% of the Earth's oxygen is produced by the oceans of our world. Ocean Quest has been creatively produced to educate youth and adults on marine life and the conservation of both land and water. He and his team will share their passion for the mysteries of this liquid world of our blue planet. On December 14th, 2006, the white dolphin was declared extinct. Who will be next? Scuba Bob completed his doctoral dissertation on dolphin communications with disabled divers with a positive outcome between the divers and the dolphin. We're going to be going to Cozumel to go diving. We will be leaving from Houston, Texas, and will be arriving in Cozumel 2 hours later. Not bad for a great international trip. Like most group trips, Carl, the trip leader, was conducting a pre-trip meeting to answer any questions and provide details to the trip. The trip was sponsored by Woodlands Dive Center.
Quintana Roo, which is the state that Cozumel is in, their COVID requirements are changing pretty regularly. Before we fly, do a search online to find out what their current requirements are. I know right now, if you're out and about, you have to be wearing a mask. So when you get off the airplane and go into the airport, you need to have a mask on. When you get on a van, you're going to have a mask on.
It looks like we made it to the plane with no mishaps, and I like it that way. Over the years, I've seen just about everything that could go wrong with taking an international trip with a group. On one of my trips, one of the travelers was in the terminal, and I asked the group to make sure they had their passports. He asked his wife where she put the passport. She said she never saw it. He said, "But I told you to pick it up off the coffee table." She said that she didn't hear him, so they had to drive 45 minutes back to Conroe to get his passport. By the way, they got back to the airport and the gates were closed, and they had to take another flight to Cancun and then take the ferry to Cozumel. That is why I tell everyone to be at the airport 3 hours early. Looks like we're getting prepared to take off. On one trip to Cabo San Lucas to dive with the gray whales, we had car problems 3 miles from the airport. Smoke was filling the inside of the car. We stopped, took our bags out of the car, and I flagged down a truck. With my broken Spanish, I was able to explain that our car was broken and we needed to get to the airport. The driver was sympathetic and dropped us off at the airport. When we arrived at the terminal, we were still 15 minutes early. I asked the attendant when the flight was leaving, and he said that it was taxiing down the tarmac. He asked how many people we had, and I told him 4. He quickly found a baggage boy and said, "Hey, Paco, quick, go flag down the plane." He jumped through the baggage doors and ran down the plane. They put us in a baggage cart and drove us to the plane, and then lowered the ladder so that we could get on the plane. So don't be late to the airport. Like one of my passengers found out, if you're under 45 minutes from an international flight, you will not be allowed to get on the plane. On that trip, he missed the trip to Holbox to dive with whale sharks. Cozumel, here we come. Seat belts are fastened. Tray tables are up. I think we're about ready to take off. Let's see what happens next. Everything's looking good so far. Let's go. And we're off. Airborne, next stop, Cozumel, Mexico. So long, Houston, Texas, and the great US of A. Onward to Mexico. Well, there's Lake Houston, and it looks like there's the San Jacinto River. It looks like we made it over mainland Mexico, and now we're about to go over the Caribbean Sea. It doesn't look anything like the water off Texas shores. See the many different shades of blue that is caused by the different depths of the water? One time I was on a trip and had a lady say, "Hey, look, can we get some of this light colored water? I'd like to mix it with some of that dark blue water and see what it would look like." Okay, there's Cozumel. I can't wait to get wet. It looks like we've flown over the island and we're circling back to land. I've never flown into the airport like this. This is very unusual. It must have something to do with the winds. These are the beaches on the windward side of the island. Because it's a remote part of the island, there's only a few restaurants and accommodations. I can't wait to get back into the Cozumel waters. Now you can see the islands of Cozumel and the town of Playa del Carmen. There's the beach, and it looks like we're putting our flaps down. Okay, it looks like we're about to land. The ground looks like they've had some rain from that front that came down from Canada. Wheels are on the ground, looks like we're safe, and now we apply the brakes. Cozumel Airport, good to see you. This is around my 20th trip to Cozumel. My first trip was in 1980, and a lot's changed over the years. Cozumel's history is incredibly rich and varied. The earliest dated occupation site on the island dates back to 300 BC, when early Yucatan Mayans began settling the island. Later, the Putin Mayans began using the island as a port for their extensive sea trade route. In the 70s, Jacques Cousteau declared Cozumel the most spectacular diving site in the world. What? No band? We don't have a band here? Wow, I missed that. On one trip to Aruba, we had a band and we were on TV because we were the first flight from US to Aruba on the Venezuelan airline Viasa. Welcome to Cozumel, Mexico. Our base of operation will be Hotel Cozumel and Resort, which is only a few blocks from the main square at San Miguel. Our hotel had a great swimming pool and hot tub. It was a great place to get the salt off your body and relax in the hot tub. We had a good house reef in front of the dive shop next to the pier. The dive shop had outdoor lockers, so we didn't have to haul our equipment back to our room every day. So let's get wet and conduct a checkout dive at the house reef. Ed was my dive buddy, and he had great diving skills, and I was impressed with his air consumption. We conducted a pre-dive briefing. It was nice to dive with a buddy that I didn't have to worry about. Every time I looked behind me, there would be Ed taking in the sights. Thanks for being a great buddy. The house reef is an attempt to make an artificial reef. No matter what type of structure you put in the water, there's lots of small marine fish, including this blue striped grunt. As we get closer, we can begin to see lots of tropical fish. This is one of my favorite fish. It's a juvenile French angelfish. As a juvenile, they have long yellow stripes, and as they age, those stripes go away and it turns into black and gold scales. As we dive along the bottom, we can see some type of branch with red algae on it. The blue striped grunt is making some kind of grunting noise. Grunts make this sound when they eat. They also make this grunting noise when they're frightened and sometimes due to being trapped by humans. They use their sophisticated pharyngeal teeth, which are in their throats, to make this noise. At first glance, this reef looks dead and gray, but if you look closely, you'll see lots of movement of life. This is why it's so important to dive slowly and pay attention to the small detail. If you do so, you'll find lots of interesting creatures, like this vase sponge, which is an animal. And look, it looks like we found one of those unusual creatures. It's called a brittle starfish. Be careful not to touch it because it's very brittle and the arms would break off. Because it's a starfish, their arms will grow back, but let's be careful and not harm our marine friends. I don't know if you noticed, but we have found 5 to 6 different types of marine creatures inside this one little sponge. It looks like we found a pair of juvenile French angels. If you notice, they have fewer stripes because these two angelfish are a little older than the other angelfish. They found a mate. Angelfish mate for life, and if they lose their mate, they will die shortly after the loss. As an adult, they'll grow 3 to 4 times as big as these juveniles. These angelfish are great to take pictures of. They cooperate and stay close together. Look, there's a Caribbean tilefish. It's also known as a Caribbean sand tilefish, a muttonfish, a sand blockleo, a sand eel, sandfish, whitey, or whiting. They live in miles of self-made burrows from rocks and shells and in caves, often hovering around the entrance, ready to dive headfirst when threatened. Tilefish form undersea pueblo villages made from gravel and sand substrate. These self-made burrows and caves are at the base of reefs, piles of rocks, and also canyons and at the edge of steep slopes. What do we have here? It looks like a green razorfish inside another vase sponge, also known as a razorfish or a sand wrasse. They are found single or in colonies hovering over inshore reefs on sand flats, slopes, and ridges. Or in this case, a tube sponge. When disturbed, they'll dive into the sand and they can swim a long distance through the sand to deter predators. They feed on zooplankton. Wrasse are always on the go during the day, but are the first to go to bed and the last to rise. Small wrasse live below the sand to sleep, and larger wrasse wedge themselves inside crevices. It looks like another juvenile French angel. The other fish is a razorfish. I hope you can understand the need to create and protect nearshore reefs for juvenile fish to grow up in, and be glad that there's not a lionfish in this reef. Most likely, divers have been spearfishing lionfish, and most of them are gone in this area. This fish is a dusky damsel, and they're the most fierce animal on the planet. No matter how big you are, they'll fight you off to protect their nest and home. This is a hermit crab that's taken up refuge in a seashell. This is why we ask divers not to pick up shells underwater, because that shell might be someone's home or a potential home. If you look close, you can see a Christmas tree worm. Almost missed it. Remember, take your time and pay attention to the small details. Well, we've come to the end of our checkout dive. It was great. Now it's time to go back to the hotel so we can check out the pool. This was a great place to have burgers and take in the beautiful view. This has been a great day. I wonder what else we can do. Let me think. There must be something I can do to show Raymond and Nicole that is a hallmark for Cozumel. Let me think of one thing I enjoy about Mexican culture here in Cozumel. I know, sexy coffee! And it can be found at my favorite restaurant inside the city called La Mission. Get ready for a great show. You're gonna love this. Our artisan heats up the glasses and coats them with lime. Our artisan Alfredo next coats the glass with a ring of sugar. Next, brandy is added to our glass. Cinnamon is added. And the brandy is put on fire. In a later episode, we'll be having sexy coffee at night. Wow, that is awesome. Last glass that will be sugared. More brandy. And now we add the coffee. The two metal trenchers are now heated up by the fire. We're not sure how Alfredo was able to handle these two hot bowls. Kahlua is added. And more brandy. Now it's time to add some sexy to our drink. Wait till you see this at night. the crowd goes wild for Alfred's awesome demonstration for sexy coffee. Our coffee is topped off with some vanilla ice cream.
Yeah, I like that. That was neat.
It's better at night.
Oh, I'm sure. Especially when it's poured in. It's easier. So it's gonna be kind of like a
Coffee for What do you think?
Yeah, surprisingly, I was surprised at how good that was. The cheese.
One of my favorite things to have
A few shakes of cinnamon, and time for the taste test. Okay, Raymond, you gotta tell me what you think.
Okay, ready?
Okay, all right.
Okay, now because you guys, my wife wants to come and try one.
Oh, yeah!
Oh my gosh. Good choice, Bob. Excellent choice.
What do you think?
It's actually pretty darn good. I like it.
All right. Sexy coffee, Cozumel style. Casa Mission. I miss this so much. I love it. It's great. We hope you enjoyed our trip to Cozumel. We want to give a special thanks to Woodlands Dive Center and their divers, Carl, our trip leader, Ed, my dive buddy, and Raymond and Nicole, my sexy coffee guests, as well as the staff of Dive Paradise and Hotel Cozumel. This is Scuba Bob saying keep it safe, keep her clean, and keep it smart until we dive again. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Scuba Bob's Ocean Quest and will return next week as we attempt to bring this liquid world into your living room. Remember, extinction is forever and for all. Do your part in protecting, preserving, and renewing our most important natural resource, the oceans. The white dolphin went into extinction in 2006 due to man's ignorance and greed.
It is our hope that you see the importance of ocean conservation